Mesdames, Messieurs et chers actionnaires,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, it's a great pleasure for me as chairman of the Board of Directors to welcome you here today at Palais des Congrès. I'm delighted to have once again this unique opportunity to discuss many topics with you, our shareholders. Let me welcome very warmly those of you who are with us for the very first time here in this hall. There is more than 970,000 private shareholders who have extended their trust to us. Thank you so very much. This General Assembly gives us an opportunity to present the strategy of the group, but also gives us an opportunity to exchange and discuss the topics of concern that you may have, and we will do that during the question and answer session. As you know, 4 years ago, we were launching Advance, our strategic plan. It was set for 2022-2025, and it has been brought to a successful conclusion. We welcome the fact that we have reached or even overperformed our financial and extra-financial objectives that were ambitious indeed, and which we achieved early in many instances. Jérôme Pelletan, our CFO, and Diana Schillag, the company Secretary in charge of sustainable development, will look at what we have done and show that we can have strong and recurring performance even in demanding times. And these demanding times mean that what our 65,000 members of staff have done is even more remarkable. On behalf of the board, I should like to thank them individually and collectively for what they have done. I suggest we give them a big round of applause. Four years ago, we also opened a new phase in our history, and we set up the new and current governance at the helm of your group. I am pleased to see that we have this very effective and fully functional relationship between the board of directors and senior management. Can I welcome all the members of the board of directors here today? To my right, Xavier Huillard, the lead independent director, and to my left, François Jacov, chief executive officer. Slightly further on to my right, Mrs. Fatima Tiglaline and Mr. Philippe Debrul, directors representing the staff members, Mr. Michael Thaman, Mrs. Monica de Vigilis, Mr. Ayman Ezat, and Madame Catherine Guillouard. To my left, Miss Annette Winkler, Mr. Bertrand Dumazy, Mrs. Kim Ann Mink, Mr. Alexis Pirakis-Vala, and Mrs. Christina Law. You have come to attend the combined shareholders meeting following a call of the notice of a meeting published in Palais and the Figaro on the 25th of March. All the owners of registered shares and the statutory orders were regularly called to attend. There were more than 680 of you to ask to attend in person. Can I tell you that our assembly is being broadcast live on the internet, and I am delighted to greet those who are joining us. This event is open also to other people, such as journalists who are in the room, but can I remind you that it is forbidden to film or broadcast our assembly without the company's authorization. You have been given a voting tablet. We will explain how it works when we come to the voting. Let me now establish the bureau of our assembly. As chairman of the board, I shall chair the proceedings. I suggest we appoint as tellers Mrs. Astrid Loiselet a representative of Amundi, and also Mr. Michael Herskovich, representing BNP Paribas. The two members of the Assembly with the greatest number of votes, and having accepted this, they are sitting in the front row here today. Together with the tellers, we have decided that Madame Muriel Serre, Secretary of the Board, also sitting in the front row, will be the Secretary of our meeting. We therefore have a full complement of members of the Bureau. According to the attendance sheet, 1,768 shareholders owning 1,972,484 shares are present or properly represented here today. 90,376 shareholders, accounting for 337,689,692 shares, have already voted by correspondence, online or by mail. The number of shares present or represented is 92,144 shareholders, representing 339,662,176 shares out of the 577,091,345 shares holding voting rights. That is 58.86%, and I will remind you that every share has one voting right attached to it. We therefore have a quorum of more than a quarter of the shares with a voting right. We can decide, adopt decisions, and I can therefore open formally the meeting. You have the agenda on the screen. All the documents provided for under the regulation have been made available to the shareholders. They are also on the desk here. They were made available to the shareholders at headquarters, and also with the use of the Shareholder Relations Department over the internet. And no shareholder asked to add any item to the agenda or any resolution. The Economic and Social Committee received in due course the documents and information submitted to the General Assembly. It has not either asked to add any item on the agenda or add resolutions. As we usually do, I suggest we do away with a reading of the reports of the board, for which a presentation will be made later today. In the broader context of the preparation for Assembly, we ran a poll. More than 6,000 shareholders responded, and I should like to thank them all. This was very useful to enable us to understand which topics you want to see discussed here today. The outlook for 2026 and the results for 2025 were, unsurprisingly, ranked top of the poll. We will therefore give you a presentation of the financial and extra-financial performance for 2025 with Jérôme Pelletan, the CFO, and Diana Schiller. Then I will give you a strategic overview and try and look at what it means for the group. François Jackoff will then explain how the group is operating in that context, and we'll look at the outlook for our company. And to get a concrete illustration, we will hear a testimony from Armel Levieux, Director, Innovation and Technology. Then I will move on to governance and give Xavier Huillard, the Chairman of the Nomination and Governance Committee, the floor. Then Alexis Pirakis-Falla, as Chairman of the Compensation Committee, will give a presentation thereof. And lastly, the statutory auditors will give us a summary of their reports. After which, we will have a question and answer session, and as is usually the case, we have an extensive question and answer session with enough time for discussions with you and with the room. If you so wish, you will be able to take the floor. You have until 4 p.m. to send your questions by text message or to the phone number that is on your cards. And this is an anonymous procedure, as we have no access to your phone number. And then to finish off, we will vote on the resolutions through the tablet that you were handed earlier. Let me now give the floor to Jérôme.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, 2025 was marked by the group's exceptional performance against a macroeconomic background that remains challenging. We yet again have displayed the strength of our model and the robustness of our operational execution. My intervention will be based on two main themes. First of all, our financial performance in 2025, and then the very positive outcome of our advanced strategic plan. The analysis of 2025 rests on four key pillars, and I will go through them in some detail. First of all, sustained growth of our sales on a comparable basis, reflecting our resilience, come what may. Second, the significant improvement of our operating margin. Third, the increase in our net profit recurring, which is the true marker of our profitability. And finally, our cash flow, which guarantees both our capacity to invest for the future and to remunerate you as the shareholders. Let's start off with the revenue in 2025. Group sales were over 27 billion, sustained growth of +2% on a comparable basis. While the figures on a published basis show a very small decline of -0.4%. What counts, this is mainly due to negative currency impact of -3.2%. What counts is comparable growth. Gas and services accounting for 97% of our revenue was up +2%. This momentum even accelerated in the fourth quarter to stand at +2.5%. Going into detail, all our geographies were up, with particular reference to the Americas, which were up very strongly at +4% for the year. Looking at our businesses, healthcare was up +5%, driven in particular by the strength of home healthcare, the treatment of diabetes and medical gases. Electronics also posted excellent performance, with growth at +6%, excluding the sale of equipment and installations. Further, the figures released a few days on our performance and activity in the first quarter of 2026 reflect this positive trend, with sales on a like-for-like basis up +1.9% and +3.4% with the contribution of the acquisition of DIG Airgas. Let's now look at profitability indicators. Regarding operating margin, after an exceptional increase of +110 basis points in 2024, we confirmed this trajectory in 2025 with an increase of +100 basis points, excluding the impact of energy. This increase is all the more remarkable for our gas and services business, where the operating margin improved by 130 basis points. Through this momentum, we have crossed a historic threshold. The operating margin of the group now stands at 20.7%, above for the first time the 20% level. How did we manage to improve our margin to such an extent? This was through three execution drivers. First, maintaining a very rigorous management of our prices in industrial merchant. The accumulated price effect since 2022 now is above +30%. Second, our efficiencies have reached a historic level and a record level of 631 million euros, up 27% on last year. And finally, we pursued active management of our activity portfolio, focusing on strategic growth opportunities that are both profitable and accretive for our margin. Now, I'm referring, of course, to the acquisition of DIG Airgas in South Korea, the most important acquisition for our group in the past 10 years. Korea has worldwide recognition for its businesses that are growing strongly, namely electronics, clean energy, or mobility. We're now world number one on this market, the fourth largest market for industrial gas, and it will double by 2035. Another strategic operation in 2025 was the acquisition of Nova Air, a leading company, industrial gas in India. These acquisitions will enable us to significantly strengthen our presence and our activities in these countries of the future. Let's now look at our third indicator for value creation, net recurring profit. This is a particularly important marker. As you know, when we announce our annual forecast, this is based on the growth of net income recurring at constant exchange rates, and that's what we commit to. This is the direct reflection of the significant quality of our operating results that stood at almost 3.7 billion euros in 2025, up very sharply at plus 9.7%, excluding currency impact. Finally, our fourth key indicator is our cash flow generation. Cash flow stood at 6.86 billion euros, up plus 8%, excluding currency impact. This financial strength is key because it ensures two things: our capacity to invest for the future and to remunerate your loyalty as shareholders. For the future, this cash flow enables us to finance a historic level of investment. At the end of 2025, we had 4.9 billion euros of investment underway, including almost 40% in electronics. This momentum will continue since our opportunity portfolio on a 12-month basis stood at the end of 2025 at a record level of 4.6 billion euros. For you, the shareholders, this cash flow also enables us to recommend today, as has been recommended by the board, a dividend of 3.70 euros per share, which is a very sharp increase of plus 12.1% on last year. This dividend will go ex. The ex-dividend date is on the 18th of May, and payout 20th of May 2026. This decision is part of the continuity of our commitment over the long term. As you've seen, the dividend per share has grown on average at plus 8% over the past 20 years. And this acceleration was led us to plus 40% of accumulated increase over the past 3 years. Your loyalty will also be remunerated through a further allocation of free shares, as has been proposed on the basis of 1 free share for every 10 shares held, with an added 10% in the number of free shares for those shares that benefit from the loyalty premium. This will be done on the 10th of June 26th. And now to come to the second major point of my presentation, the success of our advance plan. This plan was announced in 2022, the strategic plan. It will end in 2025, and I am extremely proud to be able to tell you that the initial objectives have been achieved, 100% target reached and often exceeded. On sales, we post annual growth of plus 6.1%, in excess of the initial target, which was set at 5 to 6%. On ROCE, recurring ROCE at 11.2% was well ahead of our initial ambition. But advance, as you will remember, was also our strong commitment to strongly link our financial and extra-financial performance and to present our environmental performance. I'm very happy to hand over to Diana Schillag, who's a member of the Executive Committee in charge of Sustainable Development. Thank you very much, Jérôme. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, it's a great honor to be here addressing you today. As Jérôme has just emphasized, Advance is moving ahead successfully. This plan marks a historic turning point for the group because it puts at the heart of the strategy for the first time and in an indissociable manner financial performance and extra-financial performance. And I'm very proud to confirm that the inflection target of our CO2 emissions was achieved 1 year early. At the end of 2025, we reduced our CO2 emissions by 30% on 2020. This success is first and foremost the reflection through our action of the deeply held belief of Air Liquide, which is to have positive impact in response to the challenges of our time. Let's look at the concrete impact. First of all, for the planet. In 2025, over 5 million tons of CO2 less on 2020. Specifically, this means that your group has continued to grow while its environmental footprint has diminished. This was made possible, in particular, through two key drivers. First, our massive use of low-carbon energy, which accounts for over half of these reductions. Next, the efficiency and the optimization of our plants. There is no sustainable industry without operational excellence. And this is also true for water. We committed to this and we did it. All of our priority plants in areas suffering from water stress now have a water management plan. Apart from preserving the water resource, we are building the resilience of our industrial operations. Having positive impact also means acting for society, starting with our own teams. And first, safety. This is our absolute priority. In 2025, we achieved the lowest lost time accident rate in the group's history. This reflects the very strong mobilization of our teams to ensure that this priority becomes a reality at every moment. Now, regarding diversity, with 34% of women among the managers and professionals, we are now the flagship of our industry. Why is this crucial? Because surveys show that beyond 33%, diversity becomes a true performance driver. Looking after our employees means also protecting them. We have rolled out across the world a common base of social protection for our 65,000 employees. And finally, our impact goes beyond the scope of the company. Two initiatives in particular are making a difference. Our Citizen at Work program, which enables all our employees to devote time to commit to voluntary work projects. And Access Oxygen. Again, today, half of the world's population does not have access to oxygen. We are putting our expertise in healthcare to serve this vital mission, which is to make oxygen more accessible. This initiative fully illustrates the group's commitment and lends meaning to it, which is mobilizing our expertise in order to deliver concrete solutions. These successful outcomes are our team's results, and I want to thank them very warmly for their extraordinary commitment. I also wish to commend the members of the Environment and Society Committee, in particular its chair, Annette Winkler. Their determination, their their invaluable view in these troubled times and their long-term vision are essential to carry the ambitions of the group to the highest level. In 2026, notwithstanding the challenging backdrop that we're aware of, all of us, we are still looking to our ambitions on track for them. Thank you very much, and I will now invite Jérôme to conclude. Thank you, Diane, for this remarkable result. So, shareholders, after taking stock, I propose to conclude with our outlook and our new ambition for improving margin. On the basis of the strong results of 2025, the total success of the advance plan, and on the basis of our unswerving faith in the future, we've decided to raise our ambitions further. Last year, we announced plus 200 basis point increase in margin for 2025. 2025-2026. With the improvement of 100 basis points of the group that we've achieved in 2025, we're fully on track to achieve our ambition by the end of 26. So we're going to go further, and we announced in February 26 that we are seeking a further improvement of 100 basis points in 2027. In total, this will bring the increase of our margin to 560 basis points for 2022 to 2027. This is an unprecedented performance path for the group. And last week we confirmed this again when we announced our performance for the first quarter of 2026. So I'm going to end in saying that your group for 2026 is fully confident in its capacity to increase once again its operating margin and to achieve growth in net income recurring at constant exchange rate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you so much for your trust in us.
Thank you, Diana and Jérôme, for this. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, it now befalls to me to give you the usual macroeconomic and geopolitical outlook on the world. And as you know, this is becoming tricky. Looking at the world as it is today can make us very dizzy. Let me maybe start by taking a step back and looking at things. The facts are not as unexpected and as unprecedented as it seems. We have, but we've forgotten already, overcome a deep crisis and periods of deep change that also felt unsurmountable. Look at geopolitics. In 1973 and 1979, we had a brutal shock to handle. Remember that the price of oil increased tenfold from $3 to $30, and inflation was above 12%. And yet, that then led to a stabilization of the economy and to the appearance of a new energy order. 10 years later, in 86, 87, it was gloomy once again. There was a Black Monday that shook Wall Street, nuclear tension at their highest. The oil prices collapsed then. But it was also the period in which Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev were signing a historic disarmament treaty, and sustainable development was becoming a thing within the United Nations. Over the next few decades, we saw the fall of the Soviet Union, the appearance of and emergence of BRICS, globalization, and then a sudden halt to all trade in 2020 because of COVID. What we can see is that the world has swung from tension to appeasement. And this is something the group has already overcome in the past with great resilience by relying on a factual analysis of these changes and by looking ahead in these choppy waters. The world is, as I was saying, undergoing some kind of reconfiguration. What are we talking about in the economic sphere? Well, the 1990s were the years of deregulation, privatization, austerity, and free trade. A period during which Air Liquide was initiating strategic change, acquiring Big Three in the US and large industry and electronics becoming our thing. From the 1990s to 2008, we experienced the great era of a globalized and financialized economy, the integration of China into the WTO, the rise of emerging countries, streamlining costs and value chains. Air Liquide experienced in those days 10% per annum growth and managed to use these best opportunities to extend its footprint across the world, in China, or also acquiring a significant share in the business of Mesa. Which then brings us to 2008 and the global financial crisis. You remember that the share price was severely affected and its price dropped 30% between the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009. That crisis already highlighted the significant risk of excessive dependency in supply chains. At the same time, there were new environmental obligations with strict rules in Europe, especially as concerned CO2 emissions. And that led to new clean solutions. In 2015, the Paris Agreement gave new life to all this, initiated significant investments in renewables, in solar, wind, electrification, hydrogen, and carbon capture, for instance. And it is in that broader context that we performed our largest acquisition, Airgas, in the US in 2016. And that has enabled us to grow our presence across the pond and, in fact, become leaders on the US market. In 2020, we all suffered the COVID health crisis. That led, we remembered the exceptional contribution of our group by supplying respirators and medical-grade oxygen, and that showed that we were key in health. In 2020s, we experienced significant electricity price hike, inflation, related to the Ukraine conflict in 2022. Population, of course, but energy supplies were affected. In 2025, we then had a significant increase in customs duties and the return of protectionism. Despite all this, the group has gone on developing and growing, acquiring, for instance, DIG Airgas in Korea in the summer of 2025. Which brings us to 2026 and a new conflict in the Middle East, which has led to a complete economic and geopolitical overhaul, which, according to analysts, will have lasting consequences. And all this shows us how we have moved over time from industrial capitalism to financial capitalism to something that is more of a political capitalism today. Now, over and beyond the economy, this rearranging of things affects technology. The growth in digital technologies has also gone on at a tremendous pace, and that has given new opportunities to businesses. I'm thinking here of 4G, and since 2016, indeed, it increased mobility and at the same time saw data and usage move to cloud-based solutions. And then I'm thinking of lockdowns and how with that, since 2020, we moved to working from home and e-commerce, while at the same time experiencing 5G taking over and speeding up connectivity and remote transactions. With generative AI, this became more common in 2022 with ChatGPT, and now with other actors that having come on the market, we see this across the market. But today, in 2026, AI agents are taking over from Gen AI, and trade on social media is growing extremely fast. And there are any number of causes for concern and topics, for instance, ethics, cybersecurity, disinformation, and the role of social media, which is both positive and worrying. So there is a very lively debate. So what should we conclude or remember from all this? Well, first of all, the border between politics and economics is not so clear. Global trade is being reorganized. Technologies, critical raw materials supplies, energy, semiconductors, defense. On all these issues, states interfere in the role and actions of economic actors. Autonomy and sovereignty are back with a vengeance, and national preference is a thing. Over 50 years or so, we've moved from an industrial economy relying on production, consumption, physical trade, to a technological and digital economy where information moves about instantly at a global level, but which also has serious risks and growth drivers. We must take all this into account, and François will discuss it later. But what does this really mean for the group? What kind of opportunities? Well, we've identified a few. First of all, the manufacturing revolution. In factories, things have been automated. There are more robots. It's digital, and there's more technology with 3D printing and sensors and semiconductors, for instance. Then, industrial production is reshoring, coming closer to their actual markets to bring down the trade and customs barriers. And this has had and led to significant investments in production. And we are signing any number of contracts in that respect. And then there's the energy field, looking at the energy mix and the great comeback of nuclear energy and the questions raised about fossil fuels. Our practices and those of our customers must adapt. And oxygen, hydrogen, CO2, all of these are at the heart of those solutions. And then climate. The global consensus is on the back foot nowadays, and pragmatism is the word of the day, even though progress is still very real. And for Air Liquide, carbon capture and sequestration and hydrogen are still offer significant prospects. Lastly, sovereignty is also all about innovation, and the scientific revolutions and technological revolutions open up new avenues in AI, semiconductors, space and quantum science and health. So it's in this temporary disorder that we have to steer the situation finally and make sure that we overcome these local hiccups and make sure the group is not in crisis. So what can we do? Well, we must combine agility and stability. That is to say, immediate action and long-term vision. And the management role and the role of the board supplement each other. Management has to decide, act, and needs to be nimble to look ahead and to overcome the situations. It has to act swiftly. They have to organize operations, prioritize actions, but also look at and protect our resources, make sure our staff is fully committed, guarantee performance of our industrial assets, and, of course, the reliability of our financial positions. And that's exactly what was done in the Middle East, with decisions to protect our staff in the region, but also to minimize the impact of the situation on our staff and operations. But management is all about guaranteeing the business continuity and cohesion of our staff across the world. Therefore, Air Liquide must continue to focus and to go on and along its course, being effective and operational in the same way as when things are calm. And in that context, the board has to add to that, taking a step back and adding to what management is doing so as to contribute to the stability of the group. The board can do so by ensuring consistency of what is being done, spotting overlooked topics, and it must forever look at overcoming obstacles and focusing on strategy. To do so, we have to be forever ready to listen to and dialogue with management, our staff, and the stakeholders. We do so, we achieve that by relying on the diversity of the membership of the board, which are able to hear the rustlings of the world. Our ideas and thoughts are also reliant on constant interaction with economic and institutional stakeholders. And also, we are forever mindful of your expectations. You are shareholders. And as the poll has shown, your concerns today are all about geopolitics and what it means, AI, the energy transition, the future of hydrogen, the way the group is organized, and possibly even the shareholder relations division. And we can take up these issues later on. So indeed, in these difficult times, agility and stability are clearly key. But to be nimble, you mustn't just go with the wind, go with the flow. You have to be able to adjust your course, to stay your course in an ever-changing environment. And in the world that is changing its software, if you will, what enables us to stay our course are our values. And let me just mention, and our what we rely on to set our course. Let me just mention three. First of all, the responsibility. And we have to be lucid and determined and take on board our risks and our obligations, and that is what the board is very mindful of. Second value, respect. Respect for our commitments, of course, but also for our staff, our clients, our patients, and our shareholders who have been supporting us in the long run. And lastly, trust, which is what we rely on, our anchor, the trust of you, of our staff, our clients. That has been the key to the success of Air Liquide. We are the guardians of it, and trust is something you can't decide upon. You build it over time in transparency. And as Winston Churchill used to say, you should never waste a good crisis. And indeed, this upheaval forces on us reforms and growth, which quieter times make more difficult. We will therefore overcome the difficulties of the day with our vision, and that's exactly what François Jacques will tell you about in a moment. But before we hear what he has to say, let me suggest we look together at a summary of the highlights of the past year. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoît. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, as always, each year, I'm delighted to see you here at the Palais des Congrès. And as we do every year, we come to the conclusion that last year had a wealth of events, but it was also complex, uncertain, and turbulent. And I would first of all like to thank all the teams who are mobilized day to day, who continue to serve our clients and patients in the current environment. Thank you all very much. And the fact is, as was very well explained by Benoît, the world now is marked by lasting, deep shifts. Against this backdrop, our conviction is that we must listen in order to understand, listen to our clients, listen to our teams, listen to the world. And also, we must act. We must not remain mere spectators, because quite apart from guaranteeing our resilience, our strength is moving forward, displaying agility, discernment, adapting, but moving forward. And today, I would like to show how your group has undergone transformation in order, in this environment, to keep its capacity to capture market share, and to show how the group is adapting, innovating and investing in order to respond to this new world that is emerging, and in particular, to show our capacity, our full capacity to chart our own route. As you've seen, 2025 was a year of major success for your group. Without dwelling on the figures, I would like to emphasize 4 key points. First of all, our safety performance, and I would like to thank all of our employees and partners, because in this respect, nothing can ever be taken for granted. Next, the success of our advanced strategic plan. Once again, Air Liquide has remained on track, however much turbulence there may have been. Another key point is the momentum of transformation that we stepped up in 2025, and the results of which are showing up very clearly in the group's results. And finally, the growth of our project portfolio, which is actively preparing the group's future. This momentum of global performance is fundamental in order to ensure our strategic autonomy and to ensure that we have the resources required to fulfill our ambitions. And this is because we are performing in this way that we have the drivers that are necessary to stick to our course, in particular to innovate and invest for the future. But in the present environment, the lasting continuity of this momentum requires, first and foremost, displaying a growing capacity to adapt. And as Benoît has emphasized, agility has become an essential factor in this world in transition. For Air Liquide, this is both a strength and a driver that creates value, provided that we're able to understand the transformations that are underway in order to deliver the right response. And this starts off with a very simple requirement, which is to anticipate by listening to our clients and the signals that are emerging from the markets. Adapting means first and foremost being able to meet the changing needs of our clients, whatever the situation may be. It means adapting. It means committing the transformation of our working methods. As we mentioned last year, we've continued to simplify our organizational structure. Decisions are taken on the ground, in other words, where the challenges are being met. In industrial terms, we are further improving the reliability of our plants. We're standardizing our processes, and we're rolling out AI solutions. Using this year, we have moved to generative and agent IA. For our clients and patients, we're working on simplifying their day-to-day life by making each interaction with Air Liquide even more fluid. And finally, adapting means always acting in a responsible manner in response to the turbulence of the world. In the heterogeneous environment for industry, we have to manage some complex disparities. In Europe, for example, we are undertaking the required transformation to take into account the decrease in industrial production in some regions. This means that we're doing what is needed to support our teams. These are sometimes difficult decisions to make that are always made as a last resort. And these decisions are always part of a long-term vision and the responsible management of your group. And let's keep in mind that by the same token, we have never invested as much in Europe, over 3 billion euros in 3 years. We are positioning ourselves, therefore, on the markets of the future. So while constantly adapting is a prerequisite in this volatile environment, I firmly believe that preparing the future also requires us to display our capacity to constantly innovate. Why? Because innovation is the best antidote to uncertainty. It is what enables us to differentiate ourselves by creating value and remain masters of our own destiny. And this is why we continue to focus on research and innovation more than any other player in the sector. And it's through this that we are now the number one in electronics, number one in the energy transition, and number one in home healthcare solutions. And to show that Air Liquide innovation has long since been converted into action, I would now like to hand over to Armelle Levieux, who's head of innovation and technology on the executive committee.
Still you, yes? Yes.
Thank you, François. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, good afternoon. I'm delighted to have an opportunity today to tell you in a very specific way how your group is acting in terms of innovation in order to prepare the future. The strength of our group rests on control over innovation and cutting-edge technology. This expertise is the key to our long-term growth, and we convert it into concrete solutions for our clients and patients. We have thus submitted close to over 300 patents in 2025, which means that Air Liquide is the number one depositor of patents in our industry. We are focusing our talents and investments on two major transformations of the century: the energy transition and the digital revolution. We are devoting over 1/3 of our innovation expenses to energy transition. We are building to this end unprecedented infrastructure in terms of size and impact. Let's take the example of hydrogen. Our goal is to continue to decarbonize industry and transport, in particular heavy mobility. Our Normand High project for producing renewable hydrogen illustrates this ambition. With a capacity of 200 megawatts, this electrolyzer, developed with Siemens Energy, is emerging as the driver for decarbonization of the Normandy industrial basin, but also elsewhere in France, on the Grand Puy site in the Paris region, and also in La Mède in southern France. We are going to recycle refinery residues in order to produce low-carbon energy, and this momentum is being deployed through other flagship projects in Europe and around the world. To give you but one example, we're developing another giant electrolyzer in the port of Rotterdam called Alligator. Bear in mind that these projects will enable us to avoid almost 800,000 tons of CO2 emissions per year. This is the equivalent of withdrawing 400,000 cars with a thermal engine. As for the digital revolution, It is the second major growth driver for your group, driven by the increase in artificial intelligence. Our electronic business is a critical partner for tech leaders. Our high-purity gases and our advanced materials are vital for manufacturing semiconductors. This is what is used for all electronic equipment, ranging from our smartphones to the most powerful computers and data centers. Just to give you an idea of high purity level that we're talking about, we're seeking minute scales, 1 part per trillion, which is the equivalent of a few drops of water in an Olympic swimming pool. This is the kind of extreme level of perfection that ensures and guarantees the reliability of modern chips. To respond to this miniaturization, our advanced materials play a key role. Why? They're essential for the stages of etching and laying, the setting down the layers that form integrated circuits. It's the control over this at the level of the atom that enables us to adapt architecture in 3 dimensions for new generation chips. The broad adoption of AI is stepping up this momentum with massive and constant demand for electronic chips that are increasingly complex. The global market for semiconductors should go beyond the historic threshold of $1,000 billion next year. In parallel, the renewed issues of sovereignty that Benoît talked about are an incentive for new regions of the globe to acquire the equipment. As a result of this, we have strongly stepped up our investments in this sector. Over 2 years, more than €1 billion have been invested by Air Liquide on 3 continents, and we have inaugurated and opened several advanced material plants in South Korea and Taiwan. To conclude, our capacity to constantly innovate to accompany the needs of our clients are at the heart of our competitive advantage, and by continuing to invent the technological solutions and for industries tomorrow, we are ensuring future growth and reaffirming the strength of your group. Thank you very much for your faith in us.
Thank you, Armel. So, adapt, innovate, we've said, but can I say invest? Benoît has said that the world is marked by significant changes, and it is true, the immediate context calls for caution. But in the longer run, the transformation that affects our clients are as many opportunities for growth for the group. The group, since its very beginning, has always supported its clients along with the changes of our world. So to be true to this vocation, to be there for them, for you, we invest, making the right choices, but also by being ambitious, on the basis of a 3-pronged strategy. First of all, we provide an increasingly good service to the 4 million clients and patients which trust us across the world. Secondly, we rely on our unequaled ability to support transition, the return of sovereignty, electrification, the transformation of the manufacturing industry, the growth in chips and because of digital and AI, spatial, quantum physics. You all know, because you know us, that Air Liquide will have a key role to play across the board. And lastly, we have an acquisitions policy involving small or large acquisitions to strengthen our position on key markets and in key geographies. It might mean adding to our local footprint in sales industry or in health. But it might be something large like Xavier, which was a major acquisition. The important thing for us is to make sure that our ability can give us the ways and the resources to invest for tomorrow. Tomorrow, and that is the key concluding word. It is key for Air Liquide. Indeed, our strength is to turn to the future. And again, despite the changes and the hazards of the world, you know that your group is and remains strong, resilient, and able to establish its own momentum. That resilience, that ability to forge ahead despite the difficulties, is something that we have shown any number of times. And it is not fortuitous. It is, however, fully reliant on the commitment and determination of our 65,000 members of staff. They, on a daily basis, give Air Liquide its ability to act, its strength in what it does, and puts it in the lead. So yes, we can turn to the future with confidence. Confidence because our molecules are vital. They protect, they transform, they reduce carbon, and they are the pathway to progress. We can show confidence because we are true to our basic principles, respect for customers, for innovation, and creation of shared value. And more confidence still because we are relentlessly improving our model to make it more, give it more performance levels, make it more diversified and more nimble than ever. You can rest assured that we are very much determined to focus on action. And with your support, we can go on being pragmatic and ambitious and forge ahead. We will make sure we have wind in our sails, chart our own course, and invent a future for us where we will be around for you, for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, I thank you. Thank you, François. Let me now look at the key features of the corporate governance report that the board issued. Let me first show you a short video on the makeup of the board and its committees and what it did over 2025. Today, and more specifically at this assembly, the terms of office of Annette Winkler, François Jacob, and myself will expire. And as you know, the board, as a matter of principle, has decided to reappoint François Jacob as CEO and myself as chairman of the board. Xavier Huillard, as the lead independent director, will tell you more in a minute. Annette Winkler has been a director since 2014. And the board has stated once again how very committed she is in the work of the board, and more specifically since 2017, when she has sat at the Nominations and Governance Committee. She has brought her strength to help build the capacities of the board and the committees with her long-term vision. And as a chairman of the Environment and Social Committee since 2020, she has been key in implementing the new obligations related to sustainability. Her skills and her experience as the leader of a large international industrial group and her expertise in the automobile industry will go on being key features for the board. At the end of her fourth term of office, Annette Winkler will have served for more than 12 years on the board and will therefore no longer be considered to be an independent board member. Under Resolutions 5, 6 and 7, you are called upon to renew the terms of office of directors for 4 years. Philippe de Brul's term of office is also coming to an end. He was appointed by the France Group Committee in June 2014 and then in 2018 and 2022 to this position, and he has said he does not wish to stay on. On behalf of the board, I should like to thank him for his involvement in the work of the board and of the Environment and Social Committee, which he sat on for so many years. During its plenary of the 11th of December 2025, the France Group Committee has appointed Benjamin Leclerc as a new director representing staff members. This will come into effect after our assembly, and I'm delighted to welcome him on behalf of the board. Subject to your voting the relevant resolutions, the board will still be made up of 14 members, including 2 staff directors. 42% of women, 58% men, and 75% independent directors, as you've seen already. This makeup shows a great diversity of experience, culture, expertise, which is fully consistent with the diversity policy of the board. As concerns the specialized committees of the board, and again subject to your approval, the makeup of the audit committee would remain unchanged, as would the nomination and governance committee and the compensation committee. As concerns the Environmental and Social Committee, the board has decided to appoint Christine Law, independent director, as a chairman, as she already sits on it. Let me now give the floor to Xavier Huillard, lead independent director and head of the Nominations Committee.
Merci, Benoît.
Thank you, Benoît. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, I'm delighted to see you here, as I do once a year. As a lead independent director and chair of the Nominations and Government Committee, I wish to dwell on the choice to maintain the decision to maintain the governance structure that has been in force since 2022. This analysis of the governance that is best adapted and the succession plans for our senior management are among the key duties of the Nominations and Governance Committee. In February 2026, The Board of Directors, on the recommendation of the Nominations and Governance Committee, indicated that it wanted to maintain the dissociated governments and to reappoint François Jacov and Benoît Potier in their respective duties. The renewal proposal of their term of office of the director is part of the resolutions that will be submitted to you today. Your board considered that this governance structure enables them to broaden the scope of involvement and intervention, encouraging complementarity between the roles of chairperson of the board and CEO, and is best adapted to the challenges of the present period for your group. As part of the managerial transition, which is well underway, the specific duties that were entrusted to the chairperson in 2022, in addition to legal duties, will be adapted and will henceforth focus on institutional representation and long-term orientation regarding innovation, enabling the group thus to continue to benefit from the very deep experience of the chair of the board in this respect. The chair will continue in close conjunction with the lead director, the nominations committee and the CEO to take part in the work on its succession. My duties as lead director will be maintained. Your board will meet at the end of this AGM and will confirm these decisions. Thank you. Thank you, Xavier. I will now hand over to Alexis Perakis-Valat, who is the chair of the Remuneration Committee, and he will present the resolutions regarding the remuneration of the corporate officers. Ladies and gentlemen, dear shareholders, your AGM is called upon to vote on 6 resolutions regarding the remuneration of corporate officers. Resolution number 9 is on the remuneration paid in 2025 or attributed in 2025 to your CEO, François Jacov. Consistent with the policy that you have adopted, this remuneration includes fixed annual remuneration of €1,210,000, a variable remuneration of €1,439,900, which is 99% of the target. The financial criteria of the variable remunerations for 2025 have been achieved to the tune of 74% of the fixed remuneration. Regarding qualitative objectives, the board considered that the performance of your CEO was excellent in 2025. In qualitative terms, regarding CSR, organization and human resources, the board noted the remarkable performance in terms of safety, with a historical low level with loss of attendance in the workplace. Regarding sustainable development of the group, 2025 marks the termination of the advanced strategic plan, achieving all the environmental objectives. The personal commitment of your CEO in successfully ensuring the momentum for transformation of the group and for promoting the development of talents and managerial succession plans was also decisive in achieving these extra financial objectives. I wish to finally emphasize the excellent individual performance of François Jacov, who in a very challenging environment was able to steer the group with true agility in order to achieve very robust performance. The qualitative objectives have thus been achieved at 45% of the fixed remuneration, and therefore the variable remuneration represents 119% of fixed variation. Remuneration finally included allocation of performance shares for an IFRS valuation of €1,814,866. The 10th resolution covers remuneration paid out in 2025 to the chair of the board of directors. Consistent with the policy that you adopted, this remuneration includes a fixed annual share of €800,000. The chair of the board does not have any variable remuneration, nor any long-term or exceptional remuneration. Through resolution number 11, you are called upon to approve, through a global vote, the remuneration of all of the corporate officers, senior managers and non-executive directors. The information provided includes the annualized remuneration of your senior managers compared to the average and median remuneration of the group's employees and the average remuneration of employees of the group in France. The ratio for your executive corporate officer is displayed on screen. The rest of the information is available on pages 158 to 159 of the registration document. The remuneration of non-executive directors, which is set consistent with the 2025 policy and which is included in the total amount of €1.5 million that you approved in 2024, is shown on pages 160 and 161 of the registration document. You will also be called upon to vote on the remuneration policy through resolutions 12 to 14. These are set out on pages 172 to 180 of the registration document. The general principles of the remuneration policy of the CEO are therefore part of or continue those that were approved by the AGM in 2025. The financial criteria for the variable annual remuneration are based on growth of the EPS, earnings per share, and revenue. Personal criteria continue to include goals in terms of CSR, organization, and HR. The conditions applicable to performance shares remain linked to the ROCE, TSR, and an environmental criteria aligned with the goal to reduce CO2 emissions in absolute terms consistent with the group's climate objectives. Consistent with these principles, the remuneration policy for François Jacov is submitted through resolution number 12, and it provides, as this year is a renewal year for his term of office, a review of his remuneration reflecting his excellent performance and enabling both a catch-up and a better positioning of his remuneration in relation to market practice. Your board called on the services and based its work on the input of an external consultant who is a specialist in this field. We're proposing fixed annual remuneration to be increased to stand at €1,400,000, which is 15% increase. Variable market share of 155% of fixed remuneration instead of 120%, which represents euro amount, which is equivalent to his current variable share. This variable share can reach 160 of the fixed annual remuneration instead of 150, which is an incentive for performance. And the annual allocation of long-term shares to 180% of his fixed remuneration. Overall, the new remuneration will be positioned 8% above the median of the panel of companies that were surveyed. 80% of the increase will be submitted to the conditions of performance. As previously, François Jacov will not receive any remuneration as a director. He will continue to enjoy the private pension schemes established by the group. He will continue on the same terms as those approved by the AGM since 2022 of a termination of duties, indemnity and an indemnity to make up for a commitment of non-competition. You will be called upon through Resolution 13 to vote on the remuneration policy of Benoît Potier, Chair of the Board, against the backdrop of a well-advanced managerial transition. His annual remuneration fixed share will be revised and brought down to 700,000 euros starting from the board session to be held just after this AGM, given the adjustments made to his duties. No variable remuneration, long-term remuneration or exceptional remuneration or remuneration for him as a director will be allocated to Benoît Potier. The remuneration policy of the directors is under Resolution 14. It is a continuation of what you approved last year. Variable remuneration is the predominant share of the remuneration. It will be slightly increased, consistent with market practice. The fixed remuneration of the chair of the audit committee will be revalued to take into account the extra workload arising from recent regulatory changes. The policy promotes regular attendance and effective participation of board directors to the work of the board and the committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Let's now move on to the statutory auditors' reports. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the statutory auditors, KPMG and PwC, it is my honour to report back on the mission you entrusted to us. Briefly, let me remind you of our role as statutory auditors. Our mission is a general interest mission to control and supervise for the benefit of the company's shareholders and stakeholders. We ensure the quality and transparency of the information issued, accounting, financial, or sustainability related. We were appointed by your assembly, and we are covered by ethics and independence principles as a regulated profession. Our conclusions are transposed and submitted in standardized reports to shareholders in the resolutions that you will be called upon to vote. Our reports for 2025 are in the notice of attendance for the meeting and also for the universal registration document. We issued 7 reports, a report on the annual financial statements, one on consolidated financial statements, one on related party agreements, one on sustainability and taxonomy information, and 3 reports related to share capital operations. As is usually the case here, let me give you the highlights of these reports. Let me first start with the report on the annual financial statements. You will find them pages 278 to 280 of the universal document. These annual financial statements are drafted according to the French accounting standards, and they aim at giving you a reasonable assurance that there are no significant anomalies in the accounts. And in the context of our work, we have looked at the shareholdings held by the company as a key feature of our audit, and we issued a report without reservations, only a technical comment on the first application as of January 1st, 2025 of ANC 2022-06 relating to the modernization of financial statements. The next report is to be found on pages 261 to 264 and relate to the consolidated financial statements, which have been drafted under the IFRS standard as adopted in the EU. The purpose of that work is to give you a reasonable assurance that there are no significant anomalies. Our global audit approach is adjusted to the work and activities of the group and its organization. This was shared together with our findings with the financial division of the group over the course of regular exchanges. We also reported back to senior management, to the audit committee, and to the board. There are three key audit features in our report. First of all, the large industry business. Secondly, the qualification of contracts and the modality of in which the sales are booked. And thirdly, the timeline for amortizing and depreciating production assets and their recoverable value. The third item is related to the depreciation of goodwill. We have issued no reservations or observations in this respect. Our third report deals with related party agreement and is to be found on page 397. We have not been notified of any new such agreement signed over 2025, nor of previously approved agreements that would have still been executed over the financial year. Fourth report on the information related to sustainability and taxonomy. You'll find it on pages 366 to 68. Our limited assurance report relates to the ESRS and EU regulation compliance. As concerns the processes implemented by Air Liquide to establish the information. Secondly, the information included in the sustainability report and the taxonomy. On the basis of our work, we have identified no mistake, omission, or significant inconsistency as concerns the ESRS and EU regulation compliance. In part 2, there is a technical observation relating to the methodology used by the group as outlined in paragraph 112 of the sustainability statement. Lastly, under the extraordinary meeting, we have three reports to be found on pages 398 to 400. They relate to resolutions 15, 17, and 18, authorizing operations relating to share capital. There are no specific mentions or observations under these reports. We will, if and when needed, we will draft additional reports. Sir, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much for that. This concludes the presentations and brings us to the question and answer session. Every shareholder is entitled to protect their anonymity and protect their image, and therefore shareholders taking the floor will not be broadcast over the internet. And if you wish not to have your name mentioned, please do not introduce yourself when you take the floor. Let me remind you before I open the floor how things will work for question and answers. You are more than welcome to ask a question directly into the microphone. We have also gathered your questions sent in by text message before 4 o'clock. Can I also tell you, as is permitted under the statutory obligations, the previously given written answers from the Board of Directors have been published on the internet. And to facilitate the discussion now, I suggest we do not mention them here today. We have received, so you know, 43 written questions, and this is a testimony to your commitment, focusing mainly on the three following topics: climate, our carbon trajectory, our carbon pathway, and water management. Secondly, the impact of AI on our businesses. And thirdly, the strategy as concerns, for instance, acquisitions and DIG Air Gas in Korea. All these answers are already available on the Internet website under the General Assembly tab. Let us, without further ado, start with oral questions while your written questions are asked. Down there on the right, question S.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, directors, senior management, and all those present here. I am the chair of APU, an association for individual share ownership. Usually it's Jean-Pierre Medoff, whom you know well, who should be presenting here instead of me. He is a tireless defender of individual shareholders. He has attended many AGMs and has considered and has studied in depth the publication of the group's results. Unfortunately, he passed away last weekend, and he really will be sorely missed. I wanted, therefore, to be here in this hall where he was often himself, in particular a few years ago, when not only Liquide but other companies used this hall for the AGMs. Today's AGM at Air Liquide, which places great emphasis on individual shareholders, seems an appropriate moment to pay tribute to him, and his funeral will be held in a week's time. Thank you very much. Thank you. I wish to pay tribute to Mr. Villost, one of our most loyal shareholders. I think he did indeed attend many AGMs. He was one of the committed persons in our shareholder democracy, and we will deeply miss his presence, his questions, and thank you so much for the tribute, to which I would fully subscribe. Question K, which I think is up at the top there in the middle of the room. My name is... We are committed, an organization. I have a question representing 4.8 billion assets under management. We have to adapt to climate goals, and we have to be able to continue supplying energy. This being said, apart from the very high consumption of electricity, Air Liquide could go even further. It has set a renewable energy objective, which only covers existing activities. Unless there is a supply objective, the consumption of fossil-based energy will remain significant, and reflecting our dependence on fossil energy. So two questions. First, can Air Liquide commit to a short, medium and long-term goal proportionate to its consumption of electricity, of power? And also, can it commitment to supplying renewable source energy, and with a follow-up in terms of governance? Thank you for your question. Of course, these are very important items for us. For the past few years now, we have been quite responsible in this respect because we have made commitments and we refer to them each year. We are sticking to those goals with a 2050 objective, which is carbon neutral. I will ask François to be a little bit more specific in his answer to the questions you have asked. Thank you, Benoît. Thank you, Madam, for your question and for this dialogue that we have with yourself and the association and the investors you represent. I think that we have a very constructive, transparent dialogue, and thank you for that. Now, we're talking about power to support mainly our oxygen-producing plants. This electric power is an indirect source of CO2 emissions. Of course, there are CO2 emissions that arise from power production. Oxygen, as you know, does not produce CO2, but the electricity you buy, depending on the mode of production, may contain CO2. This is what we call in the CSR jargon scope 2, meaning that when you add all the CO2 that is associated with the electric power that you buy around the world is 20 million tons of CO2 a year. That's a very large figure, and it's very important to buy electricity to support our plants with the lowest possible carbon content. And our policy is very proactive in this regard, since in 2025, 40% of our power supplies bought around the world was low carbon power based on renewable energy and in particular on nuclear power. I think the focus is on renewable energy, and this is increasing. It increased by 6% in 2025, and now accounts for 25% of the electric power bought at group level. We are industry leaders in our commitment and in our implementation of the power mix, a low carbon power mix. This being said, we do not set a proportionate target for the growth of our activity, even though for each of our projects we have a systematic review of all the sources of supply, and our teams are called upon to find low carbon sources, and we therefore enter into low carbon supply agreements. The reason why we decided not to set a proportionate objective is that we don't choose where we put our plants. Our plants are where our clients are. So depending on the different countries, the conditions of access to low carbon vary. We have no control over that, so we act project by project depending on the opportunities. So that's why we do not set an overall percentage, but our policy nevertheless is bearing fruit. And by way of conclusion, I think the best possible argument I can offer is that in terms of the results, our CO2 emissions declined by 13% on 2025. Our carbon intensity, which means the carbon content of our business, has declined by 46% since 2020. And I think above all, it's the results that count. And I think that we are successful and we are on a positive path.
Next question on this side over there. Is that O? Somewhere in the middle? Sorry, where is it? Up there.
Alors, bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, sir. My name is Véronique Gisquet-Cordeliani. I am a shareholder and have been for some time. I'm also the Secretary General of Place des Investisseurs, which some of you may be familiar with, and which increases the awareness of private investors, and which launched an academy online last year. Anyway, two questions, or two comments I'd like to submit to you for comment. First of all, last year, at the end of the year, as everyone else, I received a message saying that registered shares and the interface with Air Liquide would be managed by Xavier, a third-party intermediary. So my question is the following. Does that mean I will no longer have the usual person I used to handle? I mean, the fact is that the relationship was really very good whenever we sent messages or phoned Air Liquide back office. We used to get very open people with information. Will that change also have an impact on the time it takes to get an answer? So I'm asking a question as investor relations. Secondly, as a mother of 10 and 11-year-old children, I wanted to raise their awareness to shareholding, and I was thinking of opening up accounts with Air Liquide and other issuers. And I was wondering what you have thought of to help us as parents train the future generations of investors, getting them to invest and be aware of these things. I mean, after all, we are here looking to the future, but the future of future generations and of our children. Well, thank you, madam, and thank you for your very positive comments on the shareholder department. Of course, we expected questions on the topic. You know, of course, I'm sure, that what our announcement was last year, that we intended to have the register of registered shareholders held by an outside, reliable, strong partner and service provider. The reason we have chosen this is that given the change in technology, given the environment and the way things are changing, we wanted to ensure the safety of your holdings. Now, admittedly, we have significant experience, but we were no longer, we felt, in a position to ensure long-term security of the registry. We turned to a leading operator, a joint subsidiary of BNP and Crédit Agricole. They hold our registry now. They hold many registries from other companies, and we prepared this switch on the 31st of December from Air Liquide to Xavier. A number of people from Air Liquide have actually moved on to Xavier, so there is institutional memory, if you will. However, you have been all called upon to sign the agreements again. That has led to a tremendous amount of work, both at Air Liquide and at Xavier. We have actually successfully made the move. That happened early this year, but we haven't yet achieved the quality of service that we used to afford you. We are therefore working hard ourselves and with Xavier to make sure we are making sure, as I said, that the new staff at Xavier are properly trained and able to give you answers first. You will, however, have noticed that, well, the timeline might have become a little extended. The Air Liquide shareholder department is working and monitoring this. We are getting feedback on a weekly basis. Things are improving, but we're not quite there yet. That is our goal, and all being well, we should be back at that level sometime this year. Basically, nothing changes for you. The only difference is that the registry holder is TVA. Service will be at the expected level. There has been a peak of business early in the year. There's also increased business in whenever people die and the shares have to be allocated to their heirs. But fear not, we are in constant contact with them to make sure that everything is properly done. Your IFU, Mum, is available on the internet. I don't know if you download it yourself, but if you do, it is and remains available on the internet. As for the future, well, I'm delighted to hear that you as a mother are already turning to future generations. Well, I believe we are all involved in this together in a way. In the past, we have had sort of one-pagers and cartoons with for children so that they can get used to investors. Those staff members that are still with Air Liquide are focusing very much on marketing, on branching out and acquiring new shareholders. And I do believe that their work is of a high standard. As you noticed earlier, the number of shareholders has increased significantly. We haven't quite reached the 1 million mark, but we should get there soon, we expect. And when you analyze the numbers, many of these shareholders are young. They're probably not quite as young as your children, but we're talking about people who started around 20 to 30-year-old. But what we have seen is that the average age of shareholders is going down, so all of this is very useful. I think that is what I could tell you, really, on these issues. And to respond to what you just said, Mum, about passing on your knowledge as a shareholder. Thank you. Next question, V, wherever it is, up there, I think, and then we'll go that way.
Yes, it works. Good afternoon, Jean-Pierre Seculier. I'm an individual shareholder, and I have been one for a long time. I'm afraid I'm no longer young. I'm a significant shareholder, and Air Liquide is my main holding. I'd like to respond to what the lady before me said regarding Air Liquide and the environment. And Armel was wearing a wonderful, beautiful red suit. I'd like to ask a question regarding the profitability of this. To make things easier, I asked the same question at Vinci, and Mr. Huillard answered, if I did understand his answer. He said there are three categories of expenses, very profitable expenses. They're so profitable that we should have made them before. Normal profitable ones, that's normal, but basically they're non-profitable. And when you combine the three, you reach more or less neutral spending. So what can we say? Sorry, Mr. Huillard, that I quoted you there. Well, we'll pass that on to the person in the red suit that it's indeed the right color to make a presentation at the AGM. I'm sure she'll be very happy to hear that. Regarding the profitability of investments, any investment is considered, be it an investment program or a specific investment for a large contract, is based on the criterion ROCE, return on capital. That's the main criteria for deciding on an investment. Now, I think the preparation work that Xavier Huillard has done may be useful for me. What happens in real life is that we have investment that are not quite as profitable as Vinci's. I don't know. This could well be the case. But investment that are profitable for specific reasons, for competitiveness, or in classic investment, traditional investment, large, medium, or small, are all examined on the basis of expected return on capital. Well, the one rule we have is to seek double-digit profitability. This applies also to environment investments, and some of them produce this. The effort that we have to make on some types of investment are due either to the fact that these are new procedures, new technologies, and we have to be able to put this, to launch these technologies. That means an effort. Otherwise, there's environment investments. There are many grants, EU, or others, for example, for hydrogen. This can also apply to carbon capture. But for those investments, we always consider the return on the whole investment, excluding subsidies and after subsidies. So that's how we make the decision. So we don't quite do things in the same way as Vinci, but everything that is linked to the environment is governed by the same stringency as we have for all investments. And when we presented the financial statements, as you saw, the return on capital at Air Liquide, which was targeted at 10% in 2025, de facto was above that, showing that all the investments that we've made over the past 5 years were profitable, since we managed to bring this average profitability above 10%. I hope that answers your question, sir. Take a question on the other side now. E. I think there's a question from a gentleman there. Good evening, sir. Hello, Chair, ladies and gentlemen, shareholders and directors. I'm an individual shareholder, and I represent the National Association of French Shareholders. My question, first of all, will be, and you emphasize this, the difficult environment, the very challenging geopolitical environment. So my first question is on the Middle East conflict. What is the impact for Air Liquide of this conflict, be it in terms of the surge in oil prices, to give one example? And next, my question is on hydrogen. Last year, you emphasized the development of hydrogen, but not quite as fast as was hoped for. What is your view on past and future development on hydrogen? And I've heard all the aspects, of course, for the development of green hydrogen that you refer to. Thank you. The Middle East, I think I'm going to ask François, of course, to answer, because he will give you a detailed answer on what's happening for us. And as for hydrogen, I've spoken so much about hydrogen, I'll hand over to François so that he can answer on hydrogen as well. So, François, it's over to you. Thank you, Benoît. Thank you, sir, for your question. First of all, on the Middle East. Well, the first thing to say is that it's a human tragedy, that we have a war, and of course our teams on the ground are experiencing this daily. The presence of Air Liquide is quite strong, but proportionately our revenue in the Middle East for Air Liquide accounts for 1% of our revenue overall. We have a presence in 5 countries with units that are in situ, and also other teams that are on site. There is a regional impact. First of all, the first regional impact is ensuring the safety of our teams. We've done everything that was required in order to ensure that despite sometimes missiles that fell just a few hundred yards from our plants, in particular in Qatar, we were able to put everybody in a safe place on a precautionary basis, and to ensure that our teams are kept safe, and ensuring at the same time, and this is the critical aspect of operations, that, for example, our clients were asking for a large quantity of nitrogen for their industrial basins, so we had to step up our effort there. So that's the first point. First point in relation to our teams. None of our plants has been hit, so we are seeing limited impact in terms of our material assets, tangible assets. Now, in terms of our business, the regional business is going through ups and downs, strong variation. We've talked about the production capacity at Yanbu on the west coast of Saudi Arabia, which is where a lot of oil arrives in order to offload from the eastern part. And we have an activity that has declined. There is another aspect that is directly impacted, which is the production of helium. Helium is a subproduct of natural gas extraction, and one of the most important sources are the liquefying plants in Qatar, which have stopped the production, and this has stopped the production, which accounts for 30% of world production, with a domino effect, not only for us, but for the world market. We've spoken a lot about this, and there's a tension on this market, which was in excess capacity, and which now is in deficit. There's a shortage. We're managing this with our clients. Applications of helium go from medical imagery to manufacturing semiconductors, or to fiber optics, defense. So we're working very closely with our clients in order to ensure that all these critical operations are maintained, and we allocate the volume as best as we can, depending on our clients' needs. So it's a global logistics chain here, as you probably know. Next, we see that there is a domino effect, regional, in part because some of our local clients are compelled to stop or modify their business because they no longer have the ability to export their production. And we have secondary effects in the energy market. Very quickly, we're seeing an increase in energy prices everywhere. We see this in our own country, in France, with the increase in petrol and diesel fuel prices. The Air Liquide model is very robust and resilient in this regard, because contractually we can index the prices of our products, in particular hydrogen that we sell to our clients, on the price and the cost of energy. What we're beginning to see now are the impacts on the supply chains. We're not yet seeing shortages, but shortages that may arise for some critical materials such as aluminium, plastic, or other composite items such as sulfur acid for semiconductors. The group has done everything that's required to manage this crisis situation. We have teams on the ground. We're managing as best we can the safety considerations, and we're seeing the impacts at present. And perhaps by way of conclusion, of course, There's a great deal of uncertainty, but again, let's emphasize the strength of the Air Liquide group, and in the present situation, it's the diversity of our markets, the diversity of our geographical presence that enables us to properly manage this uncertainty and contingencies and to minimize the potentially negative impact. And to conclude, there is also impact that could be positive, in particular the need for sovereignty that we're beginning to see everywhere, and that will strengthen the relocation of some value chains. Our positioning in the United States is very strong and should benefit from the specific position of the United States as a manufacturing platform for the rest of the world. And this brings me to the next topic on hydrogen. Hydrogen was beginning to be challenged in some situations regarding the decarbonization challenges, but it now is drawing renewed interest, very strongly so, insofar as many countries, many players are now realizing that hydrogen as an energy vector is also a very important tool in order to ensure the resilience of the energy mix of countries. So we are holding active discussions with some countries, with specific players, in order to have hydrogen energy back as a core issue, since hydrogen contribute to energy resilience both in industry and in mobility. And to illustrate, without wanting to go on for too long, if we take the example of what that Armel took with the Normandy project, where we manufacture hydrogen with renewable electric power. This is the exact illustration of what we can do with hydrogen for industry, in particular for refineries. Traditionally, we used natural gas that was imported to manufacture hydrogen. Tomorrow we'll manufacture hydrogen, which will be low-carbon hydrogen, and it will be produced using renewable electric power, perhaps nuclear power, low carbon, produced locally. So this takes us towards energy sovereignty while offering low carbon energy, so that we have a dual benefit there, and we hope to develop that. And just to say a few words also on hydrogen, in addition, again, we see that hydrogen, depending on the geographies, has a momentum that varies. The low-carbon hydrogen market has stopped. It's come to a halt in the USA, continues to grow in Europe, driven by refineries. We've seen this with some contracts in order to produce low-carbon fuel. Some types of hydrogen in Asia are growing. We produced previously some examples in South Korea for the use of hydrogen in industry and mobility, but the country I really want to quote is China, at a time when some players are moving away from hydrogen. I should say that China is continuing to invest massively in hydrogen, in particular for heavy mobility, namely heavy goods vehicles. So we see this on the whole of the value chain, and for all of us who see with concern the huge number of Chinese electric cars on the market, we should keep in mind that we've already seen this before, and this should be a further incentive not to depart from our course, not to deviate from it, and to continue to invest in hydrogen, since Europe has all the possibilities, all the cards in hand to become a global leader in hydrogen.
Right, so you know everything about hydrogen, almost everything now. Let's now move on maybe to a few questions sent by text. We received 141. As you know, these questions are run through some kind of AI, which relies on the semantic analysis and identifies the topics that are of greatest interest for you. And here you have a result of the analysis, context and outlook, financial and market performance, then shareholder policy, then innovation, transformation, and AI, and lastly, energy transition, climate, and hydrogen, which we've discussed, haven't we? Let me address two questions I'll try and combine relating to the share price. First question. Thank you for your introduction and presentation of the results of the company. This will enable us to undertake a number of projects for 2026 and compensate shareholders. Yes, you are quite right. How, however, can you explain the volatility of the share price since February? Seems like a very relevant question to me, but maybe we need to look at it even a bit on a longer time frame than that, even the second half, all the way back to the second half of last year. The performance was very good in the first half of last year, but the performance was a bit choppier in the second half. When that happens, we look at the entire sector. We look at our competitors to see if this is just affecting Air Liquide or the industry as a whole. Well, it's the industry as a whole, and the industry is in fact a subsector, a sub-industry of chemicals. And there was some disregard, if you will, for chemistry and the whole chemistry industry last year, and we can't really detach ourselves from that. We have, however, been monitoring this closely to try and see what we can do to reverse the trend. Then there was a new upward trend early in the year with new affection for chemistry. But then there was a bit of a dip in February. I suppose everyone has had a bit of experience, a bit of a high and a low since February. It's these global circumstances, isn't it? And there's something else also about last year. A couple of sovereign institutional investors from the Middle East pulled out sometime last year. They decided to cash in their shareholdings and get ready cash given the circumstances. We analysed that. We realised that when we looked at our review of shareholdings and the shareholder make up at the end of last year. So much for the share price. We are monitoring this very closely and comparing it to our competitors. Second question, will we get one free share for 8 held in 2028? Look, I mean, you know that. I can't answer that question. We never, ever say what we do as concerns the allocation of free shares. It all depends for next year. It all depends on what the circumstances will be. I mean, 1 for 8. Fair game, I suppose. It's a good attempt at getting us to say something, but we will try and make sure that the circumstances are right, whatever they are. Maybe François can take a couple of questions from our text messages. We've also already discussed the Middle East, hydrogen. Something else you want to have a go at? Maybe AI, François? Well, excellent question indeed, yes. A number of questions have been sent as concerns AI and the strategic position of AI and the switch to digital in industry. But there was also a question about the future of our businesses and of actual jobs, for instance, support jobs in finance, admin. What kind of resources has the group been expending on the training of staff? And is AI more of an opportunity or a threat to jobs? Look, AI is something we talk about quite a lot. It's a cause for great enthusiasm and optimism, and also a cause for concern. Partly because things are changing very fast and you don't quite know what's happening and you can't understand the whole picture. So what's happening at Air Liquide compared to others? Well, I would say that AI is an opportunity for us to improve the way we work and improve the quality of service we give, increase the value we create for our customers. And that's particularly true as concerns our industrial manufacturing. I mean, we've got factories, we've got a fairly complex system, and AI, generative AI, will enable us to improve that, to optimize our resources, to maximize our resources and reduce the energy we spend, for instance. So it's all about productivity, if you will, and we are working on that. A number of trials have been rolled out. Then there's the issue of service, and I'm thinking of the services to individuals as concerns, for instance, health at home. We're already using our data to monitor the behavior of our patients, for instance, those who suffer from sleep apnea. We want, on that basis, to help educate the patients. But we can also use our data in a predictive fashion to get a sense of what our patients will be doing, whether they will apply their treatment or if they need assistance for them. So there are all sorts of things we can do to improve the quality of service, and specifically in health, with AI. Then there's creativity, either in our engineering teams or in our innovation and research team, for instance, to try and identify a new molecule in electronics or in gas separation. And that brings me to the impact of AI on so-called support or back office functions, for instance, finance or HR, for instance, or purchases. And that is something that is an issue across the board, not just for Air Liquide, but for everyone today. True, there are opportunities as concerns productivity, but there's there are choices to be made as concerns opportunities in terms of productivity and the impact on the people. So we need to find the best possible conditions to do so. And I think we were amongst the first companies in France to publish an ethics charter concerning AI in industry. We are very mindful of these issues. We're also part of a group of companies under the heading IA en confiance, so trusting AI, to make sure that we understand how things are happening, the benefits we can derive from it, but also potential threats. Now, as concerns, to wrap up on this issue, training, well, we have decided to massively support our staff. We were amongst the first companies in France to give our staff the opportunity to use AI at work. And last year, we set up more than 115,000 training sessions for our staff so that they could be more aware of these tools and understand the opportunities and limitations. Thank you. Thank you, François. And when you talk about AI, it goes with electronics. Is electronics the new El Dorado for Air Liquide? Well, the answer is yes, in part. The investment levels are very high. And last question, and then we'll go to questions from the room once again. Why are you announcing a 200 basis point improvement rather than wait for the new plan? Well, quite simply to reassure the markets at this time of uncertainty. Even though we are working to the future plan, we have to reassure the markets about the results of the current plan. So, questions from the room now, over there on the left. Question I. Over to you. Yes, that's you.
Hello, Chairman. I'm an individual shareholder. I have a question on electric cars that use hydrogen, and I'd like to know whether in your plans you intend to introduce in France charging points for hydrogen. Thank you, sir, for the question. Just to put things into perspective, we've spoken about this previously. At present, there are several technologies that ensure clean mobility for private vehicles. The batteries have the best performance or value for money ratio in terms of efficiency. Now, for the use of hydrogen in cars that use combustion cells, these are applications where you have very intensive use. So this can apply to fleets of taxis, for example, in Paris, where you have a very quick recharge, and in particular for heavy goods vehicles. So we're focusing on those two segments, HGVs and taxis. And in France, for taxis, we have a somewhat specific situation, special situation. Paris has 800 taxis that use hydrogen. And you may have seen recently that Uber made an announcement that they are investing and going into partnership with a company that makes taxis. And I think they're the only ones in the world to be doing this, and they're going to step up their effort. For those taxis, there's a network of approximately 10 charging points. This is in the Paris region, mainly for professional users. The other development area is heavy mobility trucks. Here we have a European approach. We have partnership with Total Energy through a company called TIL, which develops special charging stations for heavy good vehicles. I think there are 25 in operation around Europe, and we intend to have 100 in Europe on the most frequently used corridors. And in this instance, we're working with the truck manufacturers and with the users in order to seek critical mass, in order to facilitate the establishment of charging stations. So for cars, it may be a bit complicated, but if you're lucky enough to be a truck driver, maybe you can use it. Well, there you go, sir. That's a nice target for you. I have room for a few questions, maybe. One at the very top, row K. Question K. Hello, Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, directors, and shareholders. Two quick questions. First of all, I've been a shareholder for some years now. My partner, my father, my kids are also shareholders. Two questions. In France, we have discovered this year a huge field of natural gas in Lorraine. Is Air Liquide going to be involved in the use of this field? And my next question is one I raise regularly, and we're always told that it's expensive, that the timing is wrong. But insofar as the share for the past 2 years has been reaching a cap, and would it not be time to dynamize the share performance by going for a 2-for-1 stock split? Well, I think we'll I think François will talk about white hydrogen, as we call it, and I'll talk about the stock split afterwards. Thank you, sir. Natural hydrogen, or white hydrogen, as we call it, is a subject that has been studied since the 1970s. And I think that there are 300 potential sources that have been identified around the world. And there's been some media coverage of a potential field in Moselle, Wolfspieler, I believe, where tests are being done in order to verify the existence or not of a vast amount of hydrogen. The formation of hydrogen is still being looked into. These are complex geological processes. And one of the problems is that even if you identify the presence of hydrogen, how do you extract it? And just to give you an idea, the drilling that's currently underway in Moselle goes 4 kilometers underground. Is hydrogen that's dissolved in water planes, and we have no direct stake here, but we're following this very closely. And if these sources of hydrogen turn out to be usable and economic, well, with our know-how in hydrogen, we would, of course, use this. So, as you know, the answers to your second question, I always, in fact, give more or less the same answer. I'm going to be quite embarrassed here. I'm going to have to come up with a different answer. It's going to be difficult. But every time we hand out or allocate a free share, we lower the par value of the share, so it's 1 for 10. So once every 2 years, that doesn't mean that we'll come back to 100 euros, but when you analyze the recent investments made by young people now are less deterred by the share price, and the split of shares the splitting of shares is a technology that's emerging in the market. People are no longer so hindered because people can now buy a fraction of a share, which means they have exposure to what's happening in the market. So, of course, there's all the other reasons. It's very expensive. We've been very busy, in particular, with the project for transferring our shareholders register, and a stock split requires an awful lot of work. You have to prepare it, you have to readjust everything. We haven't given up on the idea. So do come back next year, sir. I'll be very happy to welcome you once again. So we have room for 2 last questions. I'll take L and maybe one of the 2 others. Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I am proud to be a shareholder of Air Liquide. It's been handed down to me, and also I wanted to respond to another question on sovereignty. I wanted to ask a question, so I'll read it out. The major investment of 250 million euros in Dresda emphasizes the importance of Germany in the electronics strategy of your group. At present, France, other European countries are also seeking to strengthen their autonomy in technological terms. My question is, how can Air Liquide ensure a proper balance between the various branches of Silicon Europe? And how important will the Dresden site be in supplying other European markets in gas supplies? In other words, providing high-value supply of gas. François, thank you, madam. You are referring to a major investment, which is the largest investment in Europe of the past 15 years in semiconductors, where a world leader decides to establish a presence in Dresden, where there's already an ecosystem with Infineon, Global Foundries, Bosch are already present. We had pointed out that we were already established and that as a global leader in specialized gases for electronics, we were able to convince the clients that we are competitive and we're going to invest massively in order to strengthen our supply chain in Dresden. Our supply is very locally based, so the benefit is devoted to the overall basin of Dresden, and we've also added to the capacity of our plant in order to be able to supply other clients. But our products don't travel. This is either done through a network of high purity hydrogen pipelines. Your other question is very interesting, and what we've seen is that there are other needs for special gases and also special molecules for the clients, and we're very much dependent on plants either in the United States or in Asia, which are Air Liquide plants, global plants that provide these specialist products. So we have argued in favor of strengthening the European supply chain and ensuring that we have full support, not only from the German government, but from Europe, not only in order to encourage the establishment of semiconductor manufacturers, but for the whole ecosystem. Because what we see in the present situation is that supply chains are a strategic weapon. And for that purpose, we are building several units in order to supply this client, but also to strengthen our capacity to provide specialist gases and molecules to the clients with products manufactured in Europe. We'll take a last question. Question H at the top, and sorry for the others.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm a family shareholder. I see there are quite a few young people in there. I've discussed a few things with them, and they seem to be Air Liquide staff members. So how do you help the transition from staff to shareholder? And what is the job description? What do I have to have on my CV to join Air Liquide? Well, many of our staff are shareholders, and we thank and congratulate them for it. There are regular allocation of shares to staff. It's now pretty systematic. It means the share capital can be open to our staff. More often than not, the issues are oversubscribed, and we try and touch as many people as possible and give as many people as possible the opportunity to join the great family of shareholders. So that's it. And then how do you get a job at Air Liquide? Maybe François can tell us. Well, look, our company is a splendid company with values, with a mission, and we try and bring a bit of progress to the world. And that's our appeal. And there are people who want to come and join us and work for Air Liquide. And the hiring policy, well, we focus on skills, competence, merit. We promote diversity as a whole, it really is a great asset for the company in the short and long run. Anyone interested can come and chat to the HR head, who'll be happy to talk with you. Thank you so very much for all these questions. Time is moving on. Can I suggest we move on to voting on the resolutions? As you noticed, the signing of the attendance sheet and the voting system are digital. You were given a tablet, and that means that we can automatically and instantly combine and tally the votes, and you'll have an explanation on the film. To vote on the resolutions,
une tablette vous a été remise.
You have been given a tablet.
Elle est strictement personnelle.
It has been entrusted to you and will only serve for this assembly. When the vote of a resolution has been announced, you will see on your tablet the opportunity to vote. Even if your tablet is idle at that time, it will come up. And then it's child's play to vote. You press on the button that you want to, for, abstain, or against, and then press OK to confirm your vote before the period for voting has expired. Once you have voted, you can no longer, once you've validated, you can no longer change your vote. And then remember to give the tablets back in as you leave. Well, the tablet has automatically been activated. There are people in the room to help you should you have any questions. Before we move on to the resolutions, let me give you the final quorum we have. According to the latest statement, the quorum is 59.12%. We therefore still have a quorum, and we can vote on the items on the agenda, seeing as these resolutions were to be found in the document that was sent to you before the assembly. I will, if you agree, only give a summary presentation of the resolutions. First of all, ordinary resolutions. 1. Approval of the company financial statement for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2025. Please remember to confirm your choice for, abstain, or against, and confirm by pressing OK. Voting, please vote for the first resolution.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 99.86%. The resolution is approved. Second resolution, approval of the consolidated financial statement for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2025. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99,89%.
In favour, 99.86%. Resolution passed. Resolution number 3, appropriation of 2025 earnings, setting of the dividend. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 99.88%. Motion, resolution approved. Resolution 4, authorisation granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 8 months to allow the company to trade in its own shares. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 98.93%. Approved. Resolution number 5, renewal of the term of office of Mr. Benoît Potier as director of the company. Please vote.
Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 93.73%. Approved.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you so very much to all of you.
Résolution adoptée.
Approved. Resolution number 6, renewal of the term of office of Mr. François Jacques as director of the company. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99,28%.
For 99.28%. Approved. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much.
Septième résolution, renouvellement du mandat de Madame Annette Winkler.
Resolution number 7, renewal of the term of office of Mrs. Annette Winkler as director. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 91,94%.
In favour, 91.94%.
La résolution est adoptée.
Approved.
Huitième résolution.
Eighth resolution, statutory auditor special report on agreements covered by Articles L22538 and Sequitur of the French Commercial Code. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99,98%.
In favour, 99.98%. Approved.
Approbation des éléments de la rémunération versée.
Approval of the components of the remuneration paid on or awarded in respect of the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2025 to Mr. François Jacques, Chief Executive Officer. Resolution number 9. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 96,86%.
For 96.86%. Approved.
Resolution number 10, approval of the components of the remuneration paid during or awarded in respect of the fiscal year ended December 31, 2025. To Mr. Benoît Potier, Chairman of the Board of Directors, please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 98.
Those in favour, 98.10%. Resolution adopted. Resolution number 11, approval of information relating to the remuneration of corporate officers stated in Article L22-1091 of the French Commercial Code. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 97.91%. Resolution adopted. Resolution number 12, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to the Chief Executive Officer. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 89.96%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 13, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to the Chairman of the Board of Directors. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 99.01%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 14, approval of the remuneration policy applicable to directors. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 91.79%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 15, authorisation granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 24 months to reduce the share capital by cancellation of treasury shares. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete. In favour, 99.51%. Resolution adopted. That was an extraordinary resolution. Resolution number 16, delegation of authority granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 26 months to increase the share capital through the incorporation of additional paid-in capital, reserves, profits, or any other amounts for a maximum amount of 320 million euros. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99.
In favour, 99.75%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 17, delegation of authority granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 26 months to perform share capital increases with cancellation of preferential subscription rights reserved for members of a company or group savings plan.
Le vote est ouvert.
Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 98.
In favour, 98.99%. Resolution adopted. Resolution 18, delegation of authority granted to the Board of Directors for a period of 18 months to perform share capital increases with cancellation of preferential subscription rights reserved for a category of beneficiaries.
Le vote est ouvert.
Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 98.
In favour, 98.85%. Resolution adopted. And finally, an ordinary resolution, resolution number 19, powers for formalities. Please vote.
Le vote est clos.
Voting complete.
Pour 99.
In favour, 99.98%. Resolution adopted.
Le vote est terminé, mesdames,
Voting
messieurs,
is
chers
over.
actionnaires. Je vous
Ladies and
remercie
gentlemen,
pour votre
dear shareholders,
confiance.
thank you
Aucune
for
question
your faith in
ne
us.
figurant plus à l'ordre
There
du
are
jour.
no
Je
longer
déclare
any
la
items
séance
on the
levée
agenda,
à
so I hereby
17h51.
adjourn the meeting at 17:51. Thank you for being with us.
Et prenez soin de vous-même, de vos familles,
Look
et de
after
vos
yourselves,
proches.
take
Et à
care
bientôt.
of yourselves and your nearest and dearest. See you soon. Bye-bye.